Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you are not already, and let's get on with it. This week, we hear how we'll be able to transfer aUEC in Alpha 3.10 and beyond. Plus, we get insight into what's required to get salvaging into our hands. So, Inside Star Citizen kicked off this week looking at the new Lightning Bolt company weapons. Now we have the aUEC sniper rifle and the aUEC pistol. They both use the new electron damage type, which is a new energy damage comprising of several other damage types like energy, distortion, and stun. Stun being what we have seen in the melee system. Now, the Lightning Bolt Company are a PMC turned military weapon manufacturer who were basically sick of all the current weapons available, so they went out and made their own. CIG are testing this new damage type with the sniper rifle and the pistol, as they are both ends of the weapon spectrum. We got to see how they created the weapons and all the detail that they added. The aUEC sniper rifle has pretty extreme power but fires very slowly. It has a pull action to reload, which makes it feel very powerful. It also chains electron damage from target to target, which the damage will decrease as it jumps from each person. There is a lot of moving parts with vents on the side and spinning pins, and the aUEC pistol is similar to the rifle but on a smaller scale, as you would imagine, and it fires faster but also quite weaker as well. The reload animation, I must say, for the aUEC pistol looks pretty snazzy. Now, there is an electron effect on the weapon itself. You have the muzzle flash, how it fires and then travels, and how it affects the player. They were all taken into consideration, giving us a full impression that this is an electron-type weapon. It uses beam splines to create an arcing effect, and once it hits the target, it impacts using GPU particles and gives it a great feeling of power. Once the target has been hit, a second hit will create an electron discharge, which is kind of like a mini pulse explosion, which can damage the person hit and anyone close to them as well. Now, these are lethal weapons, but down the line they will create non-lethal weapons for use by bounty hunters, for example. But as they say, these are very, very lethal. Personally, I am not a fan of this art style. I don't really like the look of the weapon, which is fine because, you know, everything isn't always going to be to everyone's taste, and that is one of the things that makes this game so great. But I do really love the direction they took for the damage. This electron damage is very interesting and will likely create its own specific tactics for when and where to use them. Let's say, for example, a group of enemies are huddled together. You could use it to take down or injure as many of them as possible before your friendlies move in to take them down. On the other hand, if your target is amongst civilians, then you will not be able to fire. The mini pulse electron discharge looks incredible, and seeing that happen will be so much fun. I love how it just launches their weapons away from them. For the final part of Inside Star Citizen, we had a look into the upcoming player trading app. Now, this is coming in Alpha 3.10, so the end of June. We will have a new mobiglas app built using the new building block system, which will allow players to gift another player aUEC currency or merits. I believe those are the prison currency. This will be a one-way send with no handshake process. So you open up the app, you search for the player that you want to send the credits to, and this could be anybody who has the game. So it could be someone online, offline, you don't need to know them. You select the player, then the amount that you want to send them, and then hit confirm, and it will notify them that the gift has arrived. You'll get then notifications that they have received, and it is done. Also, it shows there is a taxation associated, and it was mentioned a while ago by Chris Roberts that they wanted to include taxes, which will be used within the UEE to basically put back into the military, the police, and the other services, similar to what we have in the real world. Taxes will vary depending on where you are, and will be reflected in the environment. So if there's a place that taxes are more, then you get better services. The upkeep of the area is greater as well. If it's less, then you might see more of a degraded area. Is that a word? Degraded area. We will talk more about this in an upcoming video once I've found the information. I think it was a 10 for the chairman. If anybody knows which 10 for the chairman it was, be sure to comment on my YouTube channel. I would appreciate that. So beyond the basics of sending currency to one another, what they'll implement next is a two-way trade. So players can open up an active trade interface between two players and offer something up for trade and then barter for an agreed price or items. So it could be commodities, it could be guns, it could be ships. You could have, say, 3 bottles of water and this person wants it. You could say, give me your weapon. You can have the water. I realize you'll probably just get shot, have the water taken from you. But whatever you want to agree on, you can agree on. And that's how it's going to work. Again, I'll do a separate video on all this player trading and early days, tier 0 up to the end result. But eventually they want to get to the point where you'll be able to place goods in a cargo deck on a space station, trade the cargo with other people. So for example, if you have 200 SEU of titanium and you have this physically stored in a cargo deck above New Babbage, let's say that someone living in Area 18 can see that you have this there, and you both agree a price for him to buy that titanium from you, but he wants this cargo delivering to Area 18, so he can create a mission, or it'll automatically create a mission or whatever for a player to accept, and then physically take that cargo from the space station at New Babbage and deliver it to Area 18. As I say, we will go into more depth in a later video this next coming week, which focuses more on this as well. This is a very exciting prospect and really helps to create this emergent gameplay that Chris Roberts is always wanting to develop, and I really love this approach. But with that said, that was inside Star Citizen. We will talk more later on. Let's move on. So also this week, we had a Calling All Devs, which focused on the salvaging mechanic, what it'll involve, and what is left to do until we can start to get it into our hands and play with it in the verse. Now, there will be 4 types of salvaging. We have hull scraping, which will involve using a tool or some device to scrape off materials from the ship's surface, so from its hull. This is kind of the opposite of repair, which is, applying those materials back on. You then have component and weapon removal, so physically removing the components found in ships, and they could be power plants, computers, weapons, shield generators, all those sorts of things. Next up is More, which is using the Reclaimer's Claw, for example, and breaking chunks off and then grinding them down. And finally, the 4th type is Siphoning. Now this is a new one. This will involve draining the fuel or the oxygen or the water tanks, or even extracting the data from ships. Each of these will be commodities within the verse in their own right, and siphoning means that you won't have to pay for them and most likely be able to sell them on as well. So what is left to be done before we can get these in exactly? For hull scraping, they need the damage tech. This was actually done a long time ago, but it needs persistence to ensure that the ships spawn correctly and save out the damage information, and then create the items to actually scrape the hull. We did see coming in 3.11 that I think it's the Pyro Multitool is getting a new attachment for freeform cutting. Whether this is to do with scraping the hulls of ships, I don't know, but it certainly sounds like it. For component and weapon retrieval, obviously this requires the actual physical placement of the components within the ships and getting them all communicating with everything inside the ships first. For More, they need to figure out how the ships break up and get crunched, so using that Reclaimer Claw. And then for siphoning, they need to make sure that the room system is working correctly for things like the life support system, get these items functioning in the ships as they're supposed to, and then create a method of how to extract that. Now, currently in the works, they are revamping the power and pipe system, which allows components to communicate between each other and work correctly, particularly when an item is removed or replaced, so maybe rerouting power and so on. This will also apply to places like space stations and planetside locations. For example, you could find a space station and all the lights could be off, make your way down to the engineering room and put in a power plant, or somehow hook up the power plant and the lights will come back on again. Now, when it comes to physicalized components, the prop teams are actually working on all of the components now. These are what are found in shops, just making them all release ready. There are hundreds of them and there will be more to come. But any vehicle released within the last 2 years have their locations fleshed out for these physical components. Now, they know where all the components are going to fit in those ships, and they are going back through all the old ships and carving out the spaces for the components in them. Then, scheduled for next quarter, they will physically place these components into their allocated areas and have them link up to all the ship systems, which will then allow us to physically change the components and see the changes affecting the ship. Now, right now, they're actually creating a new system, which is what the piping system was. So allowing all the components to communicate between each other. So things like power, CPU, fuel, coolant, all of the resources. And every item in the ship will know what it needs and how to generate the resources other items may need and how to transfer them between one another. It's kind of the communication of all the components, making sure they're all doing the right thing and supplying the right thing for each component. So for example, a shield generator will need power. It'll draw power from the power plant, but it'll also generate heat, and the coolers will draw the heat from the shield generator. It all connects together. Now, once you get this system working, it will speed up the rate at which ships can be produced, but it will also make the ships feel more alive. You will see cascade failures and need to repair or reroute power, making the engineer profession a very highly valuable profession. They said the design is done and signed off on. They have done some prototyping, but will most likely do a bit more later on. But right now they're creating the technical documentation. From there, they will begin getting it built. And this sounds just incredible. Now, this was the original power piping system, but it requires so much more. So instead of having the power system and then the resource system, they're doing sort of a resource generation and item control. This is the whole system as a unified thing. The roadmap for how this is going to come about, they are working on the power to get it working as it should do. So this new system. After this, they're getting the items placed into the ships, which will take a little while because there are a lot of ships. But then from there, they will decide when to start on the hull scraping and the rest. Basically, what are the first stages of salvaging? Is it components and physicalized components? Will it be hull scraping? Trying to decide what will come first, or does it all come together? It'll likely roll out similar to how mining has. You'll get your tier 0, then you'll get these new additions as they go. Unfortunately, it does sound like there is still quite a lot of work to be done, but like with anything in Star Citizen, if they put all the hard work in now and get the system fully comprehensive, complete, designed, future-proofed, and so on, then it will require far less work, it'll be done much quicker, and it won't require multiple updates in the future. So as much as it does sound like it's quite a way off, I'm hoping that we'll begin to see the first implementation of Tier 0 of salvaging. But anyway, that was Calling All Devs. A very, very nice look into salvaging. Although they had nothing to show us yet, it does sound like they have really thoroughly thought this through, and I can't wait to see it. But do let me know your thoughts. So also this week, there was a new lore post titled Lost Squad. Jump Point is now available for all subscribers, plus with the release of the Cutlass Blue, it goes back on sale. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you do appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better, all the links are provided below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.